The sun had been changing for thousands of years. We monitored it, modeled it, and eventually, we just dismissed it. It swirled slowly at first, invisibly, growing hotter with each passing century. Our oceans began to evaporate, the atmosphere thinned, rain stopped falling, and eventually the skies turned a pale white. We tried everything: massive orbital shields to block solar radiation, fusion-powered reflectors built at large range points, atmospheric stabilizers anchored to the poles, but nothing could hold back the power of a dying star. And so we looked outwards, not as pioneers, but as survivors. Mars had long been ours. Cities thrived beneath domes of glass and magnetosphere shields. Terraforming had turned dust into soil, frozen gas into clouds. For decades it had worked. But even Mars couldn't outrun the sun. The heat had reached it, melted the caps, and unbalanced the sky. Dust storms returned. The terraformed atmosphere collapsed, the cities cracked, and then finally caved. We thought we could hide underground. We thought we could wait it out. But Earth was no longer Earth. It had become a furnace, and the sun just kept growing. What was left of humanity built 7 ships, enormous, slow, and silent. They weren't designed for exploration. They were coffins with engines, vaults for our species, a final whisper into the void. But this wasn't desperation thrown together overnight. We'd been planning for decades, working in secret, in silence. A starship built piece by piece in orbit, capable of reaching nearly 50% the speed of light. It was called the Dawn Light. Its destination was a small moon orbiting a gas giant, just over 7 light years away. We had studied it from afar, a cold green fragment bathed in gentle light. Temperatures were stable, the atmosphere possible. It was our last hope. We had checked Alpha Centauri first, the closest system, but every planet was already dead. Barren, scorched, and stripped clean by solar winds, too close to their star. So we aimed further, and we left. Not all of us, just enough to matter. And we brought everything we had ever known. Our languages, our memories, and our last songs. We packed them into databanks, into DNA, into lullabies. The ships were ready. Path was set. But one truth remained. Not everyone would go. 100,000 souls. That's all the ships could hold. 100,000 out of 10 billion. Every nation made its own rules. Some held lotteries. Names pulled from data pools. A single ping on a cold screen determining who would live and who would be left behind. Others built tests. Not just intelligence, but obedience, resilience. But not all were fair, and not all were kind. In the Eastern Territories, fractured from war and famine, they built arenas. They called them trials. The first round was physical, obstacle courses under artificial suns, glass fields and barbed wire, machines built to test pain and tolerance and endurance, to see who would break. The second round was even worse. They were given weapons and told, only one will walk out. Some tried to run, some tried to hide, and some did what they had to do. It was said that in the final match, 2 sisters were pitted against each other. Only one walked into the ship. She never spoke again. In other places, the rules changed. In the ruins of Asia's megacities, candidates were dropped into irradiated zones. No food or communication, just 90 days to survive. Tens of thousands entered, but fewer than 100 emerged. The survivors boarded the ships, with bones still healing, with eyes that didn't blink, with nightmares that would follow them into the dark. In the West, money bought safety. The rich bought dozens of seats, for their families, for their mistresses, or for their secrets. And the poor watched from rooftops as the launches roared overhead. But not everywhere was cruel. In the highlands of South America, a council of elders selected families from tribes that had lived in harmony with Earth for longer than civilization itself. Not because they were powerful, but because they remembered something the rest of us had lost. Araya's name was drawn in the Mediterranean Union. She was 16. She had studied hard, fluent in 4 languages, raised by a single father after her mother drowned in a superstorm. But none of that mattered in the end. She wasn't chosen for merit, she was chosen by chance. Her father wasn't so lucky, but he didn't try to fight it. On the day before launch, he pressed his forehead into hers and said, "Go and be the future, but never forget where you came from." She carried his scarf in her sleeve and never told a soul. Launch day was silent. The streets were empty. Skies burned pale. No speeches, no cheers. Just the sound of engines rising like thunder over a grave. 7 ships pierced the upper air and vanished, and Earth was quiet once again. Inside the ship, time melted. Most were placed in stasis, their bodies frozen in pause, their minds floating in dreamless dark, but a few stayed awake, engineers and caregivers. Araya volunteered, not out of courage, but because she couldn't close her eyes without seeing her father on the other side of the glass. As years passed, languages blurred, traditions merged, but wounds remained. Some survivors carried their trauma like ghosts, the combatants, the hunted, and the auctioned. They didn't talk about what they'd done or what they'd lost, but you could see it in the way they walked, in the way they flinched at sudden noise, or whispered names no longer alive. There were fights, an entire wing sealed off, a failed uprising in the year 12 when a group of former combatants tried to reroute the ship, but the mission held. They were still weeks away from arrival when Araya woke up from a maintenance nap and stepped into the observation deck. The stars didn't look so different, but they felt different, closer, sharper, as if the universe was holding its breath. She didn't speak, she just stood there, watching the ship slide towards its final destination. Towards a silent green moon, unnamed and untouched, a world that had never known laughter or sorrow, or the sound of human voice, and yet everything they were, everything they had lost, was now hurtling towards it, not just to survive, but to begin once again. The years in transit had changed them. The sharp divisions that once split humanity into factions had softened. There were no more arguments over borders or politics. On the long voyage, such ideas had become relics, like the soil of Earth itself, now drifting somewhere in memory. People no longer fought. They no longer schemed for power. The only hunger now was for open skies and unfiltered air, and the sound of wind on something other than steel walls. Every corridor of the ship seemed charged with the same quiet yearning, the need to step onto fresh soil. Some walked the passageways with restless energy, eager for the day the hatch would open, but others carried a more guarded silence, anxious about what waited below, an alien climate, unknown dangers, a history that had yet to be written. In the cargo bays lay the first threads of their future. Crates of seeds, carefully sealed and catalogued, held the promise of forests and fields yet to grow. Tools forged for a purpose beyond the sterile hulls of a spacecraft, hammers and spades, the weight of civilization in steel and wood. There were machines too, atmospheric processors, solar arrays and water purifiers, the bones and veins of a new society waiting to be assembled. In one bay, a single glass case held a small mound of earth soil, dark and fragrant. It was not practical. It served no purpose but one, to remind them where they had come from and what we had lost. The green moon turned slowly beneath them, its surface veiled in shifting clouds. Few aboard thought about what lay centuries ahead, about how fragile even a new beginning could be. Such thoughts had no place here. Not yet. The final hours of descent were unlike any they had known. Gravity, something they had long gone without, now pulled at their bones, heavy and insistent, a reminder they were returning to a world with weight. Through the viewports, the clouds of the green moon broke apart. Emerald continents emerged, rimmed with pale coastlines and shadowed by towering mountain ranges. Rivers ran like silver threads through its surface, catching the light of the distant suns. In the central hub, the crew and passengers gathered. There was no celebration, only a silent shared breath, as the moon filled the sky before them. For years, this had been a place from the navigational charts, a name in the mission logs, and now it was real. The landing gear extended with a low mechanical growl. The thrusters flared, their rumble deep and steady through the hull, and outside, alien winds began to swirl the dust. The green light of the moon's atmosphere washed over the ship's silver skin. Within the cargo bays, crates shuddered as the ship adjusted its pitch, seeds and tools and the memory of a dead world all trembling in anticipation. The voice of the pilot came through the comms, calm and measured. "Contact in 30 seconds. No one spoke, no one moved. Every soul aboard felt the same truth in their bones. They had reached the threshold between beginnings and endings. With a final bone-deep vibration, the landing struts met alien ground. The hum of the engines faded into silence. For the first time in decades, humanity stood on still, solid ground. Outside, the green moon waited. It did not know them. It did not welcome them. It simply was. And here, a new chapter of their species would be written, for better or for worse. The hatch opened with a slow, deliberate hiss. Air, thick with the scent of alien vegetation, flowed into the ship's corridors for the first time. It was warmer than expected, heavy, alive in a way no recycled atmosphere had ever been. The first boots touched the soil, not with ceremony, but with the quiet caution of a species meeting a new world for the first time. Their footprints pressed into emerald dust, crisp and sharp against a land that had never known such marks. They carried no flags, there were no speeches. This was not conquest, it was survival. The team spread outward in careful lines, testing the ground and sampling the air, marking the perimeter where the first shelters would rise. The crates of seeds were moved into the light, as though they too needed to see the place that they would grow. In the first cycle of this new sun, beneath the unfinished walls of the settlement, a child was born, the first human born beneath alien skies. The people, still strangers to the soil, chose to give the moon a name, and they called it Alira. No one could know what history would write of this day, only that, for the brief span of a generation, hope was stronger than fear. On the evening of their first night, the settlers gathered outside, watching the twin suns sink below the horizon. The sky burned gold, then deepened to violet and finally to black. Above them, the stars appeared, the same constellations they had once traced on Earth, now shining over a different sky. In the silence, a wind rose from the forest beyond the settlement. It carried no words, no meaning they could understand, only the unfamiliar rustle of alien leaves. But to some, it felt like a whisper, a warning carried on the breath of a world that had not asked for them. For now, the moon of Alira slept in peace, but peace, like all things, was only temporary. For a time, life on Alira thrived. Cities rose along the rivers, fields of alien grain bent in the wind. Children grew beneath twin suns, never knowing the long voyage that had brought their people here. Forests planted by human hands spread across the emerald hills. Songs were sung in new languages, the firstborn under alien skies. It was a fragile paradise, held together by hope and the shared memory of a dying home across the stars. Alira, the gentle green moon, would one day be destroyed. Its forests burned to ash and its oceans boiled away. And the people who had once walked here, laughed here, built homes and planted gardens here, were gone. All that remained were the scattered traces of a civilization that had dared to dream beneath alien skies. This is the truth of all worlds. Even the brightest star fades, even the most gentle home will one day cease to exist. Our sun will not last forever. The cradle of earth, the comfort of our familiar skies, all of it will pass. we too will face the same choice, to stay and vanish, or to look outward, to step into the vast darkness and carry the spark of life with us. It is a choice as old as the stars themselves, to surrender to the end or to defy it. The people of Alira chose to defy it. They crossed the void, built a home among alien stars, and for a brief, shining moment, they lived. And perhaps in the end, that is all any of us can do. To live, to build, and to love. Even knowing that one day, all we have made will return to dust. Today, we live in what may be our own golden age. Earth's vast forests breathe life into the air. Its oceans cradle endless varieties of life. And its climate, for now, rests within the narrow window that makes our existence possible. But our sun is a star like any other. It is 4.6 billion years old, roughly halfway through its life, and in about 1 billion years, it will grow hotter. The Earth's delicate balance will begin to break, the oceans will shrink, and the forests will wither. And this blue world will become as silent and lifeless as the planets around it. For now, we are safe. For now, we are blessed to live in this brief, perfect moment in cosmic time, and perhaps our greatest task is to be thankful for it and to use it wisely to prepare for the day when we too must look outward and find another home among the stars.